You are staring at this, like, this massive pile of glowing luminite ore.
Right.
And the chaotic, just overwhelming boss music that has been literally pounding in your ears for the last 20 minutes has finally cut out.
Best feeling in the world.
It really is. You've just defeated the Moon Lord.
Yeah.
The universe is saved. The credits are rolling. And then as you look out over the digital landscape, this world you spent maybe 200 hours meticulously building and mining and defending, this quiet, creeping emptiness just sets in.
Oh, yeah, the post-game void.
Exactly. You pick up the loot, you craft your endgame armor, and you ask yourself the single most dangerous question in gaming, which is, so what now?
It is the ultimate existential crisis of the sandbox genre, honestly.
Yeah.
And it is a psychological cliff that almost every single player falls off of, because up until that exact second, your entire playthrough has been entirely reactive.
Right, you're just responding to the game.
Exactly. You were surviving the first night by, like, building a tiny wooden box. You were scrambling to defend your NPCs from a blood moon. You were desperately digging these massive trenches just to contain the spread of the corruption or the Crimson Biome.
The pressure is just constant.
Constant external pressure.
Yeah.
The game's engine has been dictating the pace the whole time, but the exact moment the Moonlord disintegrates, all of that pressure just vanishes. The syllabus is gone.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because for a certain type of player, that moment of silence isn't the end of the game at all. It is quite literally just the tutorial finishing.
Yeah, the real game is just starting.
So today we are doing a deep dive into the true endgame of Terraria. We're looking through these massive community archives, exhaustive 100% completion checklists, and all these wiki logs detailing crossover mechanics and procedural world generation. We want to prove that the end of the final boss fight is really just the beginning.
And there is so much to cover.
There is. So the first thing almost every player does after the Moon Lord falls is, well, they look at their inventory and realize something slightly uncomfortable.
That they aren't actually a god yet.
Right. They are incredibly powerful, yes, but there is still friction in the world. And that realization initiates this massive quest for the ultimate loadout.
The psychological shift here is, it's what completely redefines the game. Terraria transforms from this survival action RPG into, like, a simulator of pure logistical supremacy.
I love that phrase, logistical.
Goal becomes the total eradication of inconvenience.
You are consolidating power.
Exactly. And the ultimate undeniable symbol of that consolidation is a sword called the
You need 10 specific swords from across the entire game's progression. We are talking about the Star Wrath and the Mjolnir, which drop from the Moon Lord's shore. But you also need the Copper Short Sword.
Yes, the Copper Short Sword.
The literal starting weapon you spawn into the world with. The one with that awful, totally useless poking animation that you probably threw in a chest or trash 200 hours ago.
Which is just brilliant game design because it introduces this philosophy of cumulative crafting. The game actively forces you to reflect on your entire journey.
You literally have to go back to your roots.
Exactly. And it's not just the Copper Short Sword. Think about what is actually required to get the other swords on that list. You need the Enchanted Sword.
Oh, finding that is a nightmare.
It is. To get that, you have to scour the world generation, just digging blindly into the earth, hoping to find this rare sword-shaped shrine hidden in the background walls.
And then you need the Star Fury.
Right, which forces you back up into the sky, chugging gravity potions to find floating islands. Then you need the Beekeeper, so you're trekking back to the underground jungle to farm the queen bee.
And it gets so much more complex than that. You need the Terra Blade, which is itself this massive multi-stage crafting project.
Oh yeah, the Terrorblade used to be the ultimate weapon before the Zenith.
Right, it requires swords forged from dungeon materials, underworld hellstone, and jungle spores. You have to go back to the jungle to farm Plantera for the Seedler. You have to survive the Pumpkin Moon event to get the Horseman's Blade. And you have to trigger a Martian Madness invasion fighting off these flying saucers just to get the Influx waiver.
It's an entire tour of the game's content.
It is. And when you finally swing the Zenith, it unleashes this screen-clearing boomerang effect of all those constituent blades flying in a massive arc. It's basically a victory lap.
It's a physical, high DPS manifestation of your entire history in that specific world.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. But the Zenith only solves combat friction.
Right. You can kill anything, but moving around is still a pain.
Exactly. As we established, the post-game player wants to remove all friction. Which brings us to the problem of transit and crafting the ultimate logistical tools.
Transit in Terraria can be super tedious.
It really can. But then you look at an item like the shell phone.
Oh man, the shell phone.
The shell phone is a logistical nightmare to assemble, but it's incredible. To understand it, we first have to look at the cell phone, which is its primary ingredient. Making a cell phone requires combining a ridiculous number of informational accessories.
So many accessories.
You need the DPS meter, the stopwatch, the metal detector, the fish finder, the weather radio. Getting these means engaging with every single NPC and subsystem.
You're constantly checking the traveling merchant's inventory.
Yeah, and you're hunting down rare nymph enemies in the caverns just for a tiny chance at the metal detector.
And you are completing dozens of fishing quests for the angler NPC just to get his specific info accessories.
The fishing quests. We will definitely get back to the angler in a minute.
We have to. But yeah, once you finally forge the cell phone, it displays every conceivable piece of data about the world. Your speed, the time, your elevation, nearby rare creatures, everything.
But the post-game player doesn't stop there.
No, of course not. They take that cell phone and combine it with the magic conch, which you find in the underground desert, and that teleports you to the oceans.
Right.
Then they combine that with the demon conch, which you literally fish out of lava in the underworld, and that teleports you to hell.
So the resulting shell phone is just this single inventory slot that grants total, instantaneous map transit. You can instantly beam to the world's poles, the very bottom of the map, or right back to your bed.
It gives you personal mastery over space.
Exactly. But what about moving around your established bases? Throughout a normal playthrough, players set up a pylon network.
Right, you'll buy these pylons from NPCs to teleport between biomes.
But the game imposes strict rules. A pylon only works if it's placed in its specific biome, like a jungle. Pylon has to be in the jungle, and it requires at least 2 happy NPCs living nearby to function.
It's a system that actively forces you to build decentralized towns.
Right. But in the postgame, players unlock the universal pylon. And this thing completely shatters all those rules.
It really does. The universal pylon is completely biome agnostic. You can place it anywhere, even floating right in the middle of the sky or deep down in some corrupted chasm.
And it doesn't need NPCs.
0 NPCs required to function. It is a pure, unrestricted teleportation node. However, obtaining it requires an absolutely absurd level of ecosystem mastery.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
No. The only way the zoologist NPC will sell you the universal pylon is if you achieve 100% completion in the bestiary.
Which, let's just be clear for you listening, is staggering. That is over 540 distinct entries.
It's a massive undertaking.
It's not just killing every boss. You have to encounter every single critter. You have to hunt down rare, obscure spawns that only appear during specific overlapping conditions.
Like finding a specific type of zombie that only spawns during a blood moon.
Right, or a specific elemental that only appears during a sandstorm. It forces you to interact with the world in a completely exhaustive, almost pathological way.
Pathological is the right word.
And speaking of pathological, I was looking at this massive 100% completion checklist floating around the subreddit, and we just have to talk about the completionist grind.
The completionist grind is where this whole logistical supremacy phase starts bordering on obsession.
Absolutely. Players will dedicate themselves to collecting every single armor set in the game, all 69 of them.
They mine wood, they mine celestial fragments from the lunar pillars, and they just build these massive curated museum halls with mannequins to display them all.
And it doesn't stop at armor. They hunt down the 115 plus vanity sets, and this includes the developer armor sets.
Oh, the dev sets are brutal to farm.
For those who might not know, these are incredibly rare cosmetic outfits that only have a 5% chance of dropping from hard mode boss treasure bags.
Which means you have to be playing on expert or master mode.
Exactly. For context, hard mode is this permanent world state change that occurs halfway through the game, permanently increasing the difficulty and spawning entirely new biomes. So you are farming ultra-hard versions of bosses over and over again just to get a shirt that looks like a game developer's avatar.
But the real nightmare, I mean, the absolute peak of the completionist grind are the enemy banners.
The banner collection.
To really understand why this is a nightmare, we need to understand the mechanic. In Terraria, every single time you kill exactly 50 of a specific enemy, you are awarded a decorative banner for that enemy.
And when placed, it provides defensive and offensive buffs against that specific creature.
Right. Now, for common enemies like green slimes or zombies, this happens organically. You'll end up with dozens of them just shoved in chests. But for the rare spawns, acquiring 50 kills becomes this brutal marathon of statistics and probability manipulation.
Let's talk about the nymph banner specifically, because I read the math on this in our sources,
Yeah.
and it is terrifying.
The nymph is notoriously awful.
She is this incredibly rare enemy that spawns in the cavern layer. She starts disguised as a lost girl and attacks when you get close. Because of her minuscule spawn rate, the probability of a random enemy being a nymph is just tiny.
Minuscule.
So the requirement to kill 50 of them makes acquiring her banner a roughly 1 in 200,000 statistical anomaly.
Exactly. And because you obviously can't just run around hoping to find 50 nymphs naturally, the player has to literally engineer the environment.
They have to build AFK farms.
Yes, away from keyboard farms. This involves completely hollowing out a massive underground area so enemies can only spawn on a very specific manufactured platform.
They place water candles and drink battle potions to artificially max out the enemy spawn rates.
They set up complex lava traps and automated dart traps, and then they just stand there for hundreds of hours, letting the game's spawning algorithm run its course until the math finally delivers 50 nymphs.
Wait, stop right there. Are you seriously telling me someone spends 100 hours adjusting spawn rates, pouring lava, and tweaking the geometry of a cave to kill an enemy that rarely appears? All just for a decorative flag?
Yes, they do.
Let's add the angler quests to this pile of madness, too. The Supreme Helper Minion achievement requires you to complete 200 fishing quests.
200.
The angler gives you 1 quest per in-game day. You wake up, check the quest, travel to the specific biome, fish up the specific weird fish like a dirt fish or a penguin fish, and bring it back 200 times.
It is a grind.
At what point do we call this an addiction rather than gameplay? Like, how is doing digital chores actually rewarding for you?
Well, it looks like tedious labor to an outsider, absolutely. It looks like a second job.
It really does.
But we have to look at the psychology of the player who has mastered the game. Collecting 115 vanity sets or 50 nymphs isn't like, collecting stamps in an album. It's much closer to collecting elements on the periodic table.
Okay, I like that. Explain the periodic table analogy for me.
Think about it. Once you have all the elements, you aren't just a collector anymore, you're a chemist.
Right.
You are establishing total dominion over the digital environment. When you have every item, every banner, every wire, and every block type, you are no longer limited by what you can find in the game.
You are only limited by what you can imagine.
Exactly. You have completely removed the game's ability to tell you no. This hoarding phase is essentially gathering the raw materials required for the next major phase of post-game life, which is total planetary engineering.
That makes a lot of sense. Once you have all the elements, you want to start reacting them together to physically reshape the planet. And there is no better tool for planetary engineering than the Drill Containment Unit.
Oh, the DCU is a game changer.
Crafting this thing is a monumental undertaking in itself. You need 40 bars of 6 different late-game ores.
Luminite from the Moonlord.
Chlorophyte, which you have to farm in the underground jungle. Shroomite, Spectre, Hellstone from the very bottom of the lava lakes, and Meteorite. It takes ages.
But when you finally craft it, what you get is this flying, rideable mount that allows you to just obliterate terrain at an incomprehensible speed.
The Drill Containment Unit completely recontextualizes how the player views a simple block of dirt.
It really does. During the main game, mining is a slow, methodical process. You mine to gather resources or to create a safe pathway or to build a house.
It's functional.
But with the DCU, mining becomes an act of terraforming. You aren't digging a tunnel, you are erasing a mountain.
I was reading that players will literally mine out entire worlds, leaving absolutely nothing but the background sky.
Yeah, they will destroy floating islands just for the sheer aesthetic satisfaction of a perfectly empty map.
But they don't just destroy. A massive part of this planetary engineering is environmental cleansing. Terraria has this system called biome spread.
Right, the infection.
The evil biomes, so the corruption or the crimson and the magical hallow biome, will slowly infect standard dirt and stone over time, converting the world. It's a constant stressor during a normal playthrough. You're always worried about it eating your jungle.
But post-game players utilize an item called the Terraformer.
Tell us about the Terraformer.
The Terraformer is the post-Moonlord upgrade to the Contaminator. It is essentially a massive, high-powered spray gun that shoots specialized solutions across massive swaths of the map.
And people use it to just sanitize the world.
Exactly. By meticulously digging vertical shafts called elevators every 100 feet across the entire world, players can drop down and spray the terraformer to achieve a literal 0% infection rate.
Earning the And Good Riddance achievement is like a huge badge of honor. It signifies that you haven't just survived the world, you have clinically cured the planet of its ancient creeping diseases.
And once it's cured, they start manipulating the biophysical properties of the map.
I was reading about these insane large-scale fluid dynamics projects.
Oh, the water physics.
Terraria has a liquid physics engine that handles water, lava, and honey. There's an item you can get from fishing called the bottomless water bucket.
Which does exactly what it sounds like.
Right, it infinitely dispenses water. Players will build containment walls at the extreme edges of the map and use this bucket to flood the entire surface, creating this massive water world scenario.
And conversely, they engage in massive drainage projects. A very popular late-game activity is digging these massive continent-wide trenches to drain the entire ocean biome directly down into the underworld.
Because of how the engine handles fluids, right?
Exactly. When water hits the Hell biome in Terraria, the game's physics engine forces it to evaporate. So you drop millions of blocks of ocean water into Hell, and you just watch your screen lag as the engine tries to process the evaporation of an entire sea and a massive hiss of steam.
It's pure chaotic joy.
Yeah.
You're testing the limits of your CPU just as much as the game engine.
Truly.
But it's not all brute force destruction or flooding. Let's pivot to the incredible, precise world of automation. We have to talk about Hoiktronics. And I really want to understand the math here because Hoiks seem like actual magic.
Hoiks are perhaps one of the most fascinating examples of emergent gameplay in the history of the medium. Originally, they were a glitch.
A glitch.
Yeah, a quirk in how Terraria handles collision detection.
Break that down for me. What is collision detection doing in this specific context?
So, Terraria's game engine constantly checks a character's bounding box or hitbox against the environment to make sure you don't just walk straight through solid wall.
Basic video game physics.
Right. Now, when you use a hammer on a solid block in Terraria, you can change its shape, turning it into a slope or a half block.
Okay.
Players realize that if you arrange these sloped blocks in a very specific jagged pattern and essentially force your character into them, your bounding box suddenly overlaps with solid space.
Oh, I see.
The game engine panics. It says, "Error, the player is inside a wall." And to fix this error, the collision resolution algorithm instantly ejects you to the next open tile.
Wait, let me get this straight. The game engine is trying to fix a math error to prevent you from getting stuck, and the community realized that if you string these errors together, you can turn that ejection into a propulsion system.
Exactly. If you string those sloped blocks together in a continuous line, the game engine is constantly, repeatedly fixing your position. It effectively teleports you from block to block at speeds up to 120 tiles per second.
That is incredibly fast.
You are literally riding a continuous wave of collision errors. This is called a Hoik.
And the developers knew about this.
Oh, the developers at Relogic saw this entirely.
Mhm.
But instead of patching it out and fixing the glitch, they embraced it. They left it in the game's code permanently because it enabled players to build functional machinery that was never initially intended.
That is the ultimate sandbox flex. The players hacked the physics engine, and the devs were just like, cool, it's canon now.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So players use these Hoiks to build massive automated systems. They create item sorting centers. They build perfectly tuned kill traps where enemies are instantly funneled by Hoiks into lava pits or dart traps before they can even react.
I was reading a thread about an eviction machine.
The eviction machine is hilarious.
It really is. Someone set up a Hoik loop in their town. Because of how NPC spawning mechanics work, the exact moment a new NPC spawned into a house, their bounding box would click the Hoik, and the collision detection would instantly shuttle the NPC across the entire map to a designated holding cell.
It's so funny, but it also shows a profound foundational understanding of the game's underlying code.
Absolutely, and this mechanical mastery extends into the game's wiring system as well. Terraria has actual logic gates.
And RON, NAND, XOR gates?
Players use wrenches to lay down different colored wire networks. By combining these logic gates with teleporters, players create passcode-encoded teleporter hubs.
It gets incredibly complex.
Yeah, explain how an XOR gate works in this combination lock scenario, because my mind was blown when I read this in our sources.
So an XOR, or exclusive OR gate, only outputs a signal if exactly one of its inputs is active. If both are active, or neither are active, it outputs nothing.
Okay, Basic computer logic.
Right. So by linking a series of binary switches to a network of XOR and 80 gates, you can set a specific binary code. You step on a teleporter, you flip the levers to input, say, 101-1.
And the game calculates it.
The logic gates process the signal. If it matches the hardwired sequence perfectly, the circuit completes, powering the teleporter and routing you to a specific secret base hidden somewhere on the map.
And if you get the code wrong,
If the code is wrong, the teleporter does nothing. Or if the player is feeling devious, maybe it drops you into a lava pit.
that is literally computer engineering inside a video game.
Yeah.
It represents a total paradigm shift.
Yeah.
I like to compare it to taking apart a clock, but maybe a better analogy is the difference between a user and a programmer.
That's a great way to put it.
When you first start playing Terraria, you are just a user. You follow the progression, you beat the bosses, you learn the interface. Beating the Moon Lord is proving you are the ultimate power user.
But eventually, you want to open the command line.
Exactly. You want to understand the underlying mechanics and build a calculator out of the game's dirt and wires.
That is a perfect distillation of the systems engineering phase. You transition from a consumer of the game's content to a co-creator of the game's experience. You are playing with the engine, not just in the world.
And this mastery of systems allows for incredible aesthetic projects as well.
Oh, for sure. Players don't just build a wooden box for the Truffle NPC anymore. They use their infinite resources to build a custom, surface-level, glowing mushroom biome inside a giant handcrafted glass dome.
And they use the shimmer. We have to mention the shimmer.
The shimmer was such a brilliant addition.
It's this pearlescent liquid introduced recently that literally transubstantiates items. You throw a crafted item in, it uncrafts it into its base materials.
Which is huge for fixing mistakes.
Or you throw certain items in, and it permanently upgrades them. And aesthetically, if a player falls through it, they turn invisible and slowly sink right through solid blocks.
Players use shimmer waterfalls to create these incredibly complex, ethereal-based designs. They set up massive, curated museums to display the 69 armors and the 115 vanity sets we discussed earlier.
But here is where the sandbox trajectory takes a really fascinating turn. Once you have completely mastered and automated your own world, once your logic gates are humming, your Hoik loops are perfectly calibrated, and your world is entirely purified of the corruption, what is left?
Right. What else can you possibly do?
The only logical next step is to start importing elements from entirely different realities.
Yes, the multiverse of crossover content.
Terraria is uniquely positioned in the gaming landscape because it really isn't precious about its own borders. It has this incredible collaborative relationship with other indie giants.
It's unprecedented, really.
It doesn't just do cosmetic crossovers like throwing a Mario hat in the game and calling it a day. It actually integrates the distinct mechanics and progression loops of other games right into its own engine. Let's look at the Dungeon Defenders 2 crossover, for example.
The Dungeon Defenders 2 integration is a perfect example of mechanical absorption. It introduces the Tavern Keep NPC, who brings an entirely new currency called Defender Medals.
But more importantly, it introduces the Old One's Army event.
Right. And this isn't just another wave of enemies. It introduces an actual tower defense mechanic that previously did not exist in Terraria's codebase.
In a normal Terraria invasion, you just run around swinging your sword to survive.
Yeah.
But the Old One's Army fundamentally changes your tactical mindset.
You have to defend a central point, the Eternia Crystal, from portals spawning Etherian enemies.
To do this, you purchase specific sentry summons, like the Flameburst Tower or the Ballista, but you can't just spam them everywhere.
No, you have to collect a unique resource called Etherian Mana that drops from the enemies during the event and spend it to place your defenses in real time.
You are suddenly managing defensive perimeters and resource economies. It's basically a completely different genre of game.
And we see an even more dramatic genre shift with the Don't Starve Together crossover.
Oh, that one is brutal.
They brought in the Deerklops boss, which features attacks that inflict a freezing debuff, but the real meat of the crossover is the Constant Secret Seed.
Explain the Constant Seed.
When you generate a world with this seed, Terraria inherits the survival mechanics of Don't Starve. You actually have a hunger meter.
Which is wild for Terraria.
Yeah, if you don't eat food regularly, your stats plummet and you eventually starve to death. Furthermore, if you stay in absolute darkness without a light source for too long, you start taking rapid, lethal damage from the dark itself.
Which completely upends the core loop. Terraria is a game about digging in dark caves. Suddenly, running out of torches isn't just an inconvenience, it is an immediate death sentence.
Exactly.
Then you have the Dead Cells crossover.
Another great one.
You can acquire the beheaded vanity set to look like the protagonist, but mechanically, you get the flint melee weapon. This weapon has a charged attack mechanic, something quite rare in Terraria, that allows the strike to pass entirely through solid walls.
And if you toss an alchemy table into the shimmer liquid we talked about earlier, it transubstantiates into a health fountain,
Right.
which permanently buffs the duration of your healing potions.
We also have to examine the recent Palworld integration, which is highly disruptive to established class balance.
Oh, it really shook things up.
They included the Digtoise and the Cativa minion. The Cativa is remarkable from a coding perspective because it can actually be pet by the player and uses visual emotes, adding a level of interactive AI that's pretty rare for standard Terraria minions.
But the most impactful addition is the Foxparks item.
Yeah, let's explain why the Foxparks is such a big deal. Terraria has 4 main combat classes, right? Melee, Magic, Summoner, and Ranger.
The Ranger class relies on bows and guns.
Traditionally, flamethrowers are strictly hard mode weapons for the Ranger. You have to defeat Skeletron Prime, which is this massive mechanical skull boss, just to get the parts to craft a basic flamethrower.
But the Palworld crossover introduces the Foxparks as a flamethrower weapon you can get before hard mode.
Precisely. By introducing a pre-hard mode flamethrower, the developers have radically altered the early game pacing and damage potential. It totally breaks the intended power curve.
It does.
And there's so many other notable mentions that just completely blur the lines of the IP. You can purify a Joja Cola from Stardew Valley with your Dryad NPC to summon a Junimo pet that gives you a star drop.
There's a Creeper Vanity set from Minecraft.
There are holy hand grenades from Worms 3. And what's really cool is the reciprocal nature of these crossovers. Terraria's Eye of Cthulhu actually appears as a boss in Don't Starve.
In Stardew Valley, if you throw an ancient doll into the lava on floor 100 of the mines, a bone serpent from Terraria jumps out and tosses you the Mjolnir sword.
But this brings up a huge question for me. I'm going to push back a little here based on some of the sources.
Go ahead.
Is it bizarre for a game to just willingly absorb other IPs like this? Doesn't taking in tower defense mechanics and hunger mechanics and flame-throwing foxes and Minecraft creepers kind of dilute Terraria's unique identity?
That's a fair question.
At what point does it stop being Terraria and start being just a messy digital collage?
That is a very common critique, but I would argue the exact opposite. A true sandbox isn't defined by the specific aesthetic of the toys inside it. It is defined by the elasticity of the rules governing how those toys interact.
It's interesting.
Terraria's core identity is its flexibility. The game engine is so incredibly robust that a tower defense minigame, a hunger survival mode, and a wall-piercing Dead Cells broadsword can all exist simultaneously without breaking the foundational loop of exploring, gathering, and crafting.
So the crossover content doesn't dilute the identity.
No, it proves the immense architectural strength of Terraria's design.
The essence of the sandbox is its capacity to absorb. I can buy that. And if the game can successfully import mechanics from other realities, then the next logical step for the post-game player, who is looking for the ultimate challenge, is fundamentally altering the rules of its own reality.
They want to mess with the code from the exact moment of creation.
Which brings us to the realm of secret seeds and procedural rule bending.
This is where things get really crazy.
With the 1.4.5 update, Relogic did something amazing. They introduced a dedicated secret seed menu, streamlining access to over 35 hidden world variants.
Before this update, you had to know the exact specific text string to type into the world generator like a secret password. Now it's just a menu of pure curated chaos.
And I want to be clear for you listening, these seeds don't just change the layout of the dirt, they aren't just new maps. They rewrite the fundamental algorithms of physics, gravity, and progression in the game. Let's start with one of the most jarring examples, the Don't Dig Up seed.
The Don't Dig Up seed is a masterclass in inverting player psychology.
It really is.
For a decade, the core loop of Terraria has been deeply ingrained in players' muscle memory. You start on the safe, sunny green surface, and you slowly, methodically dig downward into increasingly dangerous caverns, eventually reaching the lava-filled underworld at the bottom of the map.
But Don't Dig Up flips the entire algorithm vertically.
Right. You spawn at the very bottom of the map, in the underworld, on a small ash island surrounded by lava.
And the ore generation algorithm is completely reversed. The end game, hyper-powerful ores like adamantite and titanium are near the bottom, right where you spawn, while the basic weak copper and iron are near the top of the world.
And the surface is an absolute nightmare.
Yes, the surface is no longer a safe haven. It is a pitch black, highly lethal zone, completely corrupted by the evil biomes.
The gravity is altered, and if you try to fly too high or exit the top of the map, you take lethal damage and die instantly.
It takes all your established habits and punishes you for them.
Yeah.
You have to build upward to survive, fighting gravity the entire way.
It's brilliant.
Then there is the Skyblock Seed, which takes a cue from classic Minecraft survival challenges. Terraria is a game about digging. So what happens when you remove the ground entirely?
In Skyblock, you spawn with extreme resource scarcity on a tiny floating island in the middle of empty space.
You have nothing but a solidifier crafting station.
Every single block of dirt is precious. One bad jump, one missed grapple, and you fall into the void, losing your items.
It forces the player to deeply understand the absolute baseline mechanics of resource generation. You have to know exactly how to generate water, how to farm trees, and how to spawn specific slimes just to build a simple bridge.
But if a player wants pure, unfiltered, algorithmic madness, they generate the Get Fix Boy seed.
Oh man. Affectionately, or perhaps fearfully, known as the Zenith Seed.
The Zenith seed is insane.
It is an amalgamation of multiple other secret seeds stacked on top of each other. It includes the mechanics of the No-Trat seed, which, in a classic developer troll move, actually generates drastically more lethal traps.
It includes the Not the Bees seed as well.
Tell us how Not the Bees alters the world generation algorithm, because it's wild.
The world generation algorithm normally places water in caves and stone in the ground. The Not the Bees seed overwrites those baseline parameters entirely. It replaces almost all water in the world with honey.
It replaces stone blocks with hive block.
It replaces standard caves with massive sprawling beehives. When you fold that into the Zenith seed, along with the Drunk World seed, which forces both the corruption and the crimson to generate in the same world, bypassing normal rules, you get a landscape that is actively hostile to your existence.
But what truly defines the Zenith Seed are the unique, code-breaking boss encounters.
Medusa.
Medusa. Just saying the name makes my palms sweat.
Indeed. Normally, in hard mode, you face 3 mechanical bosses individually.
The twins, which are 2 massive floating eyes attached by a tendril.
The Destroyer, a giant robotic worm.
And Skeletron Prime, a mechanical skull with 4 weaponized arms.
In the Zenith Seed, the code combines them. They spawn as a massive, horrific entity called Medusa. You have to fight all of their mechanics, lasers, bombs, and probes simultaneously.
Furthermore, the Brain of Cthulhu boss fight is altered so that your actual screen and controls flip upside down during the battle.
And we can't talk about the Zenith Seed without mentioning the Moon Boulders.
Boulders are already the bane of any Terraria player's existence. They roll down hills and crush you early in the game. But in the Zenith Seed, the final boss, the Moonlord, doesn't just shoot cosmic lasers.
He shoots bouncing moon boulders that ricochet off the walls of your arena.
I was reading a thread where a player described the absolute peak horror of the Get Fixed Boy seed. They got killed by a bouncing moon boulder. But because of the seed's unique punishing rules, their gravestone didn't just sit there.
Oh, I know this story.
The tombstone itself became a lethal physics projectile. It bounced off a wall, flew across the screen, and crushed their own nurse NPC, earning them the perfectly named Grave Mistake achievement.
It is a world whose mathematical engine is actively trying to troll you.
There are even more granular seeds, too. There is a vampirism seed, where the sunlight literally burns you to death unless you are actively holding an umbrella in your hand.
There is the invisible plane seed, where the generation algorithm coats literally every single block in the world in echo paint, making the entire terrain invisible.
You have to navigate purely by memory and sound until you acquire echo goggles. Why did the developers do this? Why invest so much development time into these bizarre, broken versions of the game?
Because Realogic recognized a very real phenomenon in gaming known as veteran fatigue.
Veteran fatigue.
When a player has 2,000 hours in Terraria, they understand the AI patterns perfectly. If you simply give an enemy double health and double damage, which is what Master Mode does natively, it isn't a real challenge for a veteran.
It's just a math problem. It means the fight takes twice as long.
Exactly. Secret Seeds solve veteran fatigue by changing the context of the challenge. They break your habits. They force you to unlearn the game. And with the combinatorial meta introduced in 1.4.5, this goes to infinity.
Explain the combinatorial meta. How does that work?
Players can now stack these seeds. You can mix the Drunk World seed with the Celebration MK10 seed.
The Celebration seed gives the world a vibrant pink aesthetic, drastically increases the mathematical drop rates of rare items, and spawns the Princess NPC who sells the ultra-rare slime staff right at the start.
Right. So by allowing players to combine the variables of 35 different seed modifiers, the world generation engine creates billions of possible permutations. It effectively guarantees infinite, unpredictable replayability.
It's like having a sandbox where the sand changes its chemical composition, its gravity, and its color every single time you try to build a castle.
It's incredible.
But here's the thing. Even when you stack these seeds, and you make the world actively hostile with moon boulders and inverted gravity, the terrain is still the main enemy. You are still ultimately just surviving the environment. What happens when the player wants to test their pure mechanical twitch reflexes?
When changing the world isn't enough, they have to start crippling themselves.
Precisely. We move from environmental challenge to the ultimate masochism. Self-imposed limitations and the modded frontier.
Self-imposed challenges are the hallmark of a gaming community that has completely outgrown the software's native boundaries.
A very common post-game activity that our sources talk about constantly is the class-restricted playthrough. We touched on classes earlier. Normally, in Terraria, you mix and match. You might swing a sword, but keep a gun in your hotbar for flying enemies, and summon a little slime minion to watch your back.
But a veteran will start a brand new playthrough, restricting themselves entirely, 100%, to one class.
Let's take the pure summoner run as an example.
A pure summoner run radically alters your approach to every single encounter. The summoner class relies on summoning AI minions to do the damage for them, while the player uses whips to direct the minions' aggro.
The trade-off is that summoner armor has incredibly low defense.
You are exceptionally frail. If you restrict yourself entirely to summoner weapons, you cannot use a bow or a sword when things get close.
This requires a profound understanding of specific accessory loadouts, prioritizing items that increase your minion capacity and dodging ability.
It completely changes how you fight early game bosses when you only have a single weak Finch staff to defend you, and taking 2 hits will kill you.
And if restricting your weapons isn't enough to feel the adrenaline, you restrict your life. You start a fresh character on Master Mode. Now, Master Mode is hard enough natively. Enemies have massively inflated health pools, their damage output is brutal, and bosses drop unique golden relics to prove you beat them.
But attempting a completely deathless or hardcore run on Master Mode, that is the ultimate test of combat mastery.
In Hardcore, if you die once, whether it's from a boss, a trap, or falling too far, your character is permanently deleted. The file is gone.
Hundreds of hours instantly vaporized in a single mistake.
The psychology of the Deathless run on Master Mode is fascinating to analyze. It fundamentally transforms Terraria from a casual, creative sandbox into a punishing, high-stakes roguelike.
Every single movement becomes calculated. Every block placed during an arena build is strategic. You do not engage a boss until you have meticulously over-prepared your arena.
Right. You aren't just fighting in a field. You are building multiple layers of wooden platforms. You are placing campfires and heart lanterns to buff your health regeneration.
You are wiring up heart statues to drop health pickups on a timer. You are carving out small pools of honey to dip into for extra regeneration buffs.
Yes, the hardcore condition changes your relationship with the game from playful experimentation to rigorous, unforgiving discipline. And for those who have mastered even the Master Mode bosses, they begin creating their own absurd combat scenarios.
They fight endgame bosses with severely under-tiered weapons.
Oh, the contrasts are amazing. Imagine taking that fully powered, screen-clearing Zenith sword into a fresh Master Mode world just to see how fast you can melt the Eye of Cthulhu. It takes literal seconds.
It's hilarious.
But then, players will do the reverse. They will summon the Moon Lord, the ultimate cosmic horror, and attempt to defeat him using only pre-hard mode gear. Weapons like the Mini Shark or a basic fiery greatsword.
A fight that normally takes 5 minutes suddenly takes 45 minutes of flawless zero-mistake dodging.
Or, my personal favorite flavor of chaos, they summon multiple bosses simultaneously.
The simultaneous boss fight is the ultimate test of processing overlapping mechanics.
Players will gather the summoning items for the twins, Skeletron Prime, the Destroyer, Plantera, and the Golem. They will go to a massive, custom-built arena and spawn all 5 of them at the exact same time.
You have the Destroyer's lasers shooting from the ground, Skeletron's bombs dropping from above, the twins dashing across the screen, and Plantera's seed pods bouncing off the walls.
The player is testing whether their DPS output and their invincibility frame dodging skills can handle an overwhelming bullet hell scenario that the game engine was never designed to render at once.
Which leads directly into the theoretical boss rush.
Some players curate their own 15-stage boss rush. They fill their inventory with every summoning item, and they move from biome to biome, fighting every boss in order of progression, without ever returning to base, without talking to the nurse to heal, and without restocking potions.
And this entire gauntlet usually culminates in what the community widely considers the absolute peak flex of vanilla Terraria combat.
Fighting the Empress of Light.
During the daytime.
The daytime Empress of Light. Let us break down the mechanics of this encounter because it is legendary.
It really is.
The Empress of Light is a beautiful, terrifying bullet hell boss found in the Hollow biome. Normally, you summon her and fight her at night, but if you summon her during the day, or if your nighttime fight extends past 4:30 a.m. in game time, she enters an enraged state.
And enraged is an understatement. When she's enraged, every single one of her attacks will kill the player instantly, in one hit.
I want to paint a picture of this visual chaos. She unleashes these massive, screen-filling arrays of homing lasers, cascading prismatic bolts, and geometric light patterns that you have to weave through perfectly.
It doesn't matter if you have endgame solar flare armor. It doesn't matter if your health is maxed out at 500. One pixel of her laser touches your hitbox, and you die.
But the game incentivizes this madness. If you manage to defeat her dealing 100% of the damage during the daytime state, she drops the Terra Prisma.
This is a unique, incredibly powerful summon weapon that creates a flurry of enchanted swords that fight for you.
Achieving the Terra Prisma with a hardcore character is the undeniable zenith of Terraria combat mastery. You have to play absolutely flawlessly, relying entirely on muscle memory and dash accessories like the Master Ninja gear for several minutes straight.
And yet, for a distinct, highly vocal subset of the community, even a flawless, one-hit kill daytime Empress of Light fight isn't enough punishment.
When vanilla Terraria refuses to be hard enough, the players build their own suffering. This is where we cross the final threshold into the modded frontier, and we have to talk about overhaul mods, most notably Calamity.
Mods like Calamity or Thorium are essentially massive fan-made expansion packs. But Calamity is famous for completely redefining the power scale.
It doesn't just add a few new swords, it adds entire multi-tiered stages of post-Moon Lord progression.
In the context of the Calamity mod, defeating the Moon Lord is roughly the midpoint of the game.
Yeah, you beat the Moon Lord, you feel like a god, and Calamity pats you on the head and says, "That's cute, now go fight a real god."
Exactly. After the Moon Lord, you have to mine entirely new tiers of ore, like Eula Bloom. You have to fight super bosses.
You face Providence, the profaned goddess, whose bullet hell mechanics make the Empress of Light look like a tutorial. And then the mod continues to scale up until you are fighting the Devourer of Gods.
The Devourer of Gods is a prime example of modded extremity. It is a cosmic space worm that is so large it spans the entire screen.
It features grid-based laser attacks that require pixel-perfect positioning to dodge.
It requires materials like cosmolite bars just to craft the armor necessary to survive a single hit from it. And beyond that, the mod adds supreme challenges like the Exomex or Supreme Calamitas, which push the Terraria engine to its absolute rendering limits.
Okay, I have to ask the philosophical question here. We started this deep dive talking about beating the ultimate evil and saving the universe.
Yeah.
You win the game, and your reward is downloading a massive mod just to fight a cosmic space worm that kills you in one hit.
It's a great question.
Why do we crave this punishment? Why do players actively seek out ways to make a completed game miserable?
It's a profound question about player agency and the nature of play itself. In a standard linear game, your motivation is provided for you by the narrative or the level design. The game says, go here, kill this. But in a sandbox that you have already conquered, that external motivation is gone. The friction is gone. And without friction, a game ceases to be a game. It becomes a diorama. When the software stops telling you what to do, you are forced to become your own game designer.
So you invent the friction.
Exactly. You invent the rules. You enforce class restrictions. You mandate deathless conditions. You download Calamity to fight Supreme Calamitas because you are trying to find meaning and challenge in a world you already control entirely.
The punishment isn't the goal.
Suffering isn't the goal. Mastery is the goal. The punishment is simply the metric by which that mastery is measured. The harder the punishment, the more profound the mastery feels.
We invent the rules to give our mastery meaning. That perfectly ties this whole journey together. Let's recap what we've unpacked today. We started with that quiet moment of emptiness after the Moonlord falls. But we've seen that the post-Moonlord experience is vastly richer, deeper, and more complex than the main progression.
It evolves from a logistical hoarding, grindcrafting the shell phone, farming 200 fish for the angler, securing that 1 in 200,000 nymph banner into planetary engineering.
We used the drill containment unit and Hoyt collision glitches to build automated eviction machines and passcode-protected teleporter hubs. We break the boundaries of the IP by importing Dead Cells weapons and Pole World mechanics.
We rewrite the mathematical reality of the world using combinatorial secret seeds like Don't Dig Up and the chaotic Zenith seed with its bouncing moon boulders.
And finally, we push our own psychological and reflex limits with Master Mode hardcore runs, daytime Empress fights, and the cosmic super bosses of the Calamity mod.
It's a remarkable life cycle for a piece of software. It transforms from a simple survival adventure into a canvas for infinite computer engineering, combat optimization, and procedural exploration.
So I have a question for you listening right now. What is your first post-game project going to be? Are you going to hop in a drill containment unit and systematically mine your entire original world down to absolute cosmic dust?
Are you going to build a museum to display all 115 vanity sets?
Are you going to attempt a deathless run? Or are you going to generate a Zenith seed and try your luck against Medusa? The sandbox is waiting for your instructions.
I will leave you with a lingering idea to consider. At the very end of Terraria's life cycle, when you are no longer surviving, when you are using XOR logic gates to automate mob farms, typing combinatorial code into the world generator to invert gravity, and exploiting collision detection to build 120 tile per second transit systems,
Yeah.
are you still actually playing the game?
Oh, wow.
Or have you stepped outside the bounds of the player character? Have you become part of the game's development engine itself? When you control the biomes, the spawn rates, the algorithms, and the very physics of the world, perhaps you have transcended being the player. Perhaps, after all those hundreds of hours, you have become the true Moon Lord of your own digital universe.
You know, looking at it that way, suddenly that empty feeling after the credits roll doesn't feel like an ending at all. It just feels like a promotion. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.